They think about you more than you know, but their pride, it won't let them say a word. They act like you don't exist, like they've moved on, like they're out there living their best life, untouched, unbothered, unfazed. But let me tell you something, my friends. That's a lie. A big, ego-fueled, pride-driven lie. Because the truth? Every silence, every moment they don't reach out, every fake smile they post is nothing more than a cover-up. A desperate attempt to convince themselves that they're fine without you. Before we go deeper, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because what I'm about to tell you, it's going to change how you see everything. And by the end of this, you'll never question your worth again. Hey folks, imagine this. You're walking down the street and spot a stray dog. It's hungry, tired, struggling to survive. You feel bad, so you start feeding it. Every day you show up, bringing food, showing kindness. And at first, it eats without hesitation, but after a while it starts to act different. It won't look at you the same way. It barely acknowledges you. And one day, it turns its back and walks away as if it never needed you. But what happens when you stop showing up? When the food stops coming? When the kindness disappears? That same dog starts looking for you. It starts feeling the hunger. It starts realizing it took you for granted. That's exactly how pride works. When they feel like they have unlimited access to you, they don't appreciate it. But the moment you pull away, the moment you go silent, the moment you stop feeding their ego, that's when they start noticing your absence. But instead of admitting it, instead of swallowing their pride and reaching out, they play games, they act cold, they pretend they don't care. My friends, don't fall for it. See, people love to act like they're too strong to miss someone. They'll go out of their way to make it seem like they're doing just fine without you. But here's the truth. If someone truly didn't care, they wouldn't have to prove it. Let that sink in. The effort they put into looking like they don't care, that's proof they do. Now, I know some of you are sitting there thinking, but what if they really don't care? What if I never cross their mind? My friends, let me hit you with some reality. People always think about what they once had. Always. You don't just erase real connections like deleting a photo from your phone. The mind doesn't work that way. Have you ever walked past a place and suddenly remembered an old conversation, a moment, a person you haven't thought about in years? That's how it happens. And trust me, you pop up in their mind more than you'll ever know. But their pride? That's the wall that keeps them from saying a word. And let's be honest, reaching out would mean admitting they were wrong, admitting they miss you, admitting they lost something valuable. And for some people, their ego is more important than their peace. They'd rather suffer in silence than be the one to break first. But don't mistake their silence for strength. Sometimes the loudest pain is the one nobody talks about. And here's where it gets good, because while they sit there, trapped in their own pride, battling thoughts they'll never say out loud, you're free. You're not waiting. You're not begging. You're not checking your phone, hoping for a message that may never come. You're moving forward, glowing, living your life like the legend you are. And that's what's going to eat them alive. So say it with me. I do not chase. Write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you are done waiting for someone whose pride is bigger than their heart. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because what's coming next? It's going to make sure they never stop thinking about what they lost. Number 1. Silence speaks louder than words. What they won't say is exactly what they can't stop thinking about. They act like they don't care, like your absence means nothing, like you were just a passing moment in their life, easy to forget, easy to replace. But here's the truth, my friends. If someone has to work that hard to act unbothered, they are anything but. Pride has their mouth shut, but their mind is screaming. Their thoughts are running in circles, stuck in a battle they'll never admit to. But silence always tells the real story. Hey folks, imagine this. You're sitting in a quiet room, and suddenly a song pops into your head. You didn't ask for it, you didn't hit play, but there it is, looping in your mind, refusing to leave. You try to ignore it, distract yourself, think about something else. But the more you fight it, the louder it gets. That's you in their head. They don't talk about it, they won't say it, but the silence between you is filled with your name. And I know what some of you are thinking, but what if they really don't care? What if I'm just making this up? My friends, let me tell you something. People don't forget those who touched them deeply. You don't just erase someone who made an impact. You don't just move on from something real. Sure, they might try. They might bury it under distractions, new faces, forced laughter, fake confidence. But no matter where they go, no matter what they do, you follow them. Not in person, not in messages, but in memories, in flashes of what once was. And that's what scares them. See, silence is powerful. It forces people to sit with their choices. It forces them to hear their own thoughts without the noise of conversation, without the comfort of knowing they still have access to you. That's why they avoid it. That's why they distract themselves. That's why they pretend. Because facing the truth is harder than pretending it doesn't exist. You ever notice how when people truly move on, they don't have to prove it? They don't make a show of it. They don't go out of their way to act like they don't care. They just live. But when someone is forcing themselves to move on, it's loud, it's calculated, it's performative. Because the silence is haunting them. You were their comfort, their constant, the presence they thought would always be there. And now there's an empty space where you used to be. And trust me, they feel it. But admitting that? No, that would mean swallowing their pride. That would mean breaking the facade. That would mean showing vulnerability. And for some people, that's their biggest fear. They tell themselves that if they just stay silent long enough, the feelings will fade. That time will make it easier. That eventually they'll forget. But that's not how it works. Time doesn't erase a real connection. It magnifies it. It takes what they ignored and makes it impossible to escape. And one day, when they least expect it, when they're staring at their phone at 2 a.m., or walking past a place you used to go together, or hearing your name in a random conversation, it hits them. And in that moment, they realize they lost something they can never get back. But don't get it twisted. That moment won't be loud. It won't be dramatic. It won't come with an apology or a confession. No, my friends, it will be quiet, just like their silence now. They won't show it. They won't admit it. But inside, it will eat them alive. And here's where most people fail. You sit there wondering, should I reach out? Should I break the silence? Should I remind them of what we had? You think that if you just say the right thing, they'll finally acknowledge the truth. But listen to me. You don't have to remind someone of what they lost. Time is already doing that for you. Every single day. Your silence is the lesson. Your absence is the answer. Your distance is the mirror reflecting their own actions back at them. And if they ever do reach out, it won't be because you begged them to see your worth. It will be because they finally realized it on their own. But by then, You'll be too far ahead to care. And let's be honest, this isn't easy. It takes strength to hold back, to resist the urge to fix what you didn't break, to fight the instinct to prove your worth. Because everything in you wants to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be heard. But let me ask you, did they fight for you? Did they lose sleep over how they made you feel? Or did they just expect you to sit there, waiting, while they pretended you never mattered? No, my friends, not anymore. Let them feel the silence. Let them sit with it. Let them drown in the thoughts they refuse to speak. Because one day, when their pride finally crumbles, when their ego isn't enough to protect them, when they reach for you and realize you're gone, that's when they'll understand. But by then, you'll be standing on a whole different level. And the best part, you won't even need to look back. Say it with me. My silence is my power. Write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you are done explaining, done waiting, done proving. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because what's coming next? It's going to make sure they never stop thinking about what they lost. Number 2, they watch, but they'll never let you know. They're silent in public, but active in the shadows. They act like they don't care, like you don't exist, like they've erased you from their mind, their life, their world. But let me tell you something, my friends. Just because they don't speak doesn't mean they aren't watching. They don't like your posts, they don't comment, they don't text, but they lurk, they scroll, they check your stories in secret, watching from behind the curtain, hoping you never notice. Because their pride won't let them engage, but their curiosity, that's another story. Hey folks, imagine this. You're in a room filled with mirrors, but there's one-way glass. On one side you stand freely, thinking you're alone, moving through life without a second thought. But on the other side, someone is watching. They see everything, but you'll never see them. They're silent, hidden, observing from the shadows. They want to know, they want to see, but they don't want you to know they care. That's them. That's exactly what they're doing. And I know what some of you are thinking. If they're watching, why don't they just say something? My friends, the answer is simple. Ego, pride, the fear of looking weak, the fear of showing their hand. Because if they admit they're watching, they admit they care. And admitting they care, that's admitting they were wrong. So instead, they sit in the background, watching your every move but pretending they don't see a thing. And you wonder if they've forgotten you, if they've moved on, if you were just another name on their list. But the truth, they check on you more than you check on them. Because people don't watch what they don't care about. They want to see if you've changed, if you're happy, if you're struggling, if you're still waiting. And the moment they realize you're thriving without them, that's when it starts to burn. That's when the weight of their own pride starts pressing down on them. But here's where it gets funny. They think you don't know. They think they're being sneaky, that their silence hides their curiosity. But let's be real, my friends. Silence is its own kind of noise. The absence of their presence? That's the loudest message they could ever send. Because if they truly didn't care, they wouldn't need to watch at all. They're not just watching you. They're measuring themselves against you. Are you happier? Are you glowing? Have you moved on? Are you better off without them? They want to know. They need to know. But they will never give you the satisfaction of saying it out loud, because saying it means surrendering control. And that's the biggest game of all, control. They left thinking they had it, thinking they could move on, thinking they could walk away without a second thought. But the moment they realize you're not chasing, you're not waiting, That's when they panic. That's when the questions creep in. And because they don't have the courage to ask you directly, they watch from a distance, hoping to find the answers in silence. Let me hit you with a little Stoic truth. What they do in silence says more than their words ever will. Their silence isn't confidence, it's uncertainty. Their lack of engagement isn't strength, it's hesitation. If they truly didn't care, they wouldn't be lurking in the first place. And yet, they are. And here's the best part. You don't even need to do anything. You don't need to reach out. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to make them see what they lost. Because trust me, they already see it. Every time they check your page, every time they scroll through old messages, every time they stare at their phone, debating whether or not to text you, they feel it. And one day, that silence will break them. But by the time they're ready to admit what they've been doing in the dark, you'll be too far ahead to care. Say it with me. I am not an option. Write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you are done waiting for someone too proud to acknowledge their own feelings. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because what's coming next? It's going to make sure they never stop thinking about what they lost. Number 3, their ego won't allow vulnerability. The need to protect their image is stronger than the need to reconnect. They feel it, the pull, the thoughts, the memories creeping in when they least expect it, the urge to reach out, to say something, anything, but the second they get close, their ego slams the door shut. Because admitting they miss you means admitting they were wrong. And for some people, that's a fate worse than regret. So instead, they stay silent. They convince themselves they're fine. They drown the feelings in distractions, pride, fake confidence. They tell themselves, if I just hold out a little longer, maybe I won't have to say it. Maybe they'll reach out first. Maybe I won't have to be the one to break. But here's the truth, my friends. They already broke. Hey folks, imagine this. A person builds a prison, brick by brick, wall by wall. But here's the twist. They're not keeping anyone else out. They're locking themselves in. The bars, their pride, the locks, their fear of looking weak. They thought they were protecting themselves, keeping their dignity intact. But now they're trapped in their own ego, unable to step outside, unable to be real, unable to say the one thing their heart is screaming, I miss you. And I know what some of you are thinking. If they really cared, wouldn't they just say something? Wouldn't they just let go of their pride? My friends, you're thinking like someone who has the strength to own their emotions. But not everyone is built that way. Some people fear vulnerability more than they fear losing you. To them, reaching out first means surrendering control. It means facing the truth they've been running from. It means putting their heart on the line with no guarantee of how you'll respond. And that terrifies them. Because in their mind, the moment they admit they miss you, they lose. See, people like this operate on power, control, the illusion that they are always one step ahead, that they can walk away, move on, never look back. And the second they reach out, that illusion shatters. They have to face the fact that their emotions, not their logic, not their pride, not their image, are calling the shots. And that truth is harder for them to swallow than the silence. So instead, they suffer. They distract themselves. They fake it. They tell themselves, I'll be fine, this will pass. But no matter where they go, no matter how much time goes by, one thought lingers in the back of their mind. What if I just said something? What if I just let my guard down? But they won't. Not yet, because their need to protect their image is still stronger than their need to reconnect. And here's the kicker. They assume you're feeling the same way. They think you're also too proud, too afraid, too hesitant to make the first move. They assume you're sitting there, staring at your phone, debating whether or not to break the silence. But what they don't realize, you're not trapped like they are. See, when someone is ruled by their ego, they think everyone else is too. But you're built differently. You're not waiting. You're not stuck. You understand that power doesn't come from pretending you don't care. It comes from actually moving forward. Because a strong person owns their emotions. A weak person hides them. That's the difference between you and them. You've accepted what happened. You've faced the reality of it. You've let yourself feel the pain, process it, and grow from it. But them, they're still running from their own feelings, their own guilt, their own regret. And that's why they can't reach out, because reaching out means facing everything they've buried. And let's be real, this isn't easy. You might still have moments where you wonder, what if they're just waiting for me to say something? What if they're struggling too? And you know what? They are. But that's their battle to fight, not yours. Because if they let their ego keep them from something real, that's on them. And if they wait too long, that's their regret to live with. But you're free. You're not locked in that prison with them. You're not playing the same game. You're already walking away while they're still standing at the starting line, afraid to take a single step forward. And one day, they'll wish they had the courage to speak. But by then, you'll be too far ahead to hear them. Number 4. They thought they had time. Now it's running out. Pride makes people hesitate, but hesitation turns into regret. They thought they had time, thought they could walk away, take their sweet time exploring other options, playing their little games, doing whatever they wanted, because in their mind, you'd always be there. Just one message away. Just one half-hearted apology away. Just one weak effort away from stepping back into your life like nothing ever happened. But what they never saw coming, what their pride blinded them from realizing, is that time doesn't wait. At first, they felt in control. They thought, I'll reach out when I feel like it. I'll check in when I'm ready. They assumed they could disappear, live their life, and when they wanted to return, you'd still be standing in the same place, waiting. But time has a cruel way of teaching lessons. Hey folks, imagine this. Someone is holding a key, the key to a door that leads to something priceless, something rare, something they don't fully understand the value of just yet. They don't rush to use it, because in their mind, the door will always be there. But they wait, and they wait, and they wait. And then one day, when they finally decide to walk back and unlock that door, it's gone. The key no longer fits. The door has been replaced. The opportunity has vanished. And suddenly, they realize they waited too long. That's exactly what's happening right now. They assumed you'd always be there, but the longer they stayed silent, the more that door began to close. And now they don't know if they can still get back in. And that uncertainty, it eats at them. Because for the first time, they're realizing they might have lost you for good. And here's where it gets even better, because right now, they're still hesitating, still debating, still caught in that place between pride and action, thinking, maybe I should say something, but what if they don't respond? What if they moved on? What if I waited too long? And that fear, that's what keeps them frozen. See, people convince themselves they have all the time in the world, that they can put things off, take people for granted, push things aside because life goes on. But life doesn't wait for hesitation. A moment of hesitation can create a lifetime of regret. And I know what some of you are thinking, but what if they still don't care? What if they never reach out? Let me tell you something, my friends. People don't panic over things that don't matter. If they were so confident about moving on, they wouldn't be overthinking, wouldn't be hesitating, wouldn't be feeling that creeping, gnawing, inescapable realization that they might have lost something irreplaceable. Because, deep down, they know they played themselves. They thought time was on their side, but time doesn't erase real connections. It exposes them, and right now, that exposure is hitting them hard. Because while they were busy hesitating, you were busy evolving. While they were sitting in their pride, assuming they had forever, you were changing, growing, moving forward. And now, you're not in the same place they left you. And let's be real, this isn't easy. There was a time when you would have given anything to hear from them. A time when you would have picked up the phone in a heartbeat, replied instantly, let them back in without hesitation. But now, you're different. Because time hasn't just been running out for them, it's been working for you. Time has been showing you that you don't need to chase, that you don't need to wait, that you don't need to be an option for someone who thought they had forever to decide your worth. And one day, they will finally get it. They will reach out. Maybe with a simple, hey, maybe with something deeper. But when they do, they won't be stepping back into the same world they once knew. Because that door is locked. And they'll realize too late that they should have moved when they had the chance, that they should have spoken before the silence became permanent, that they should have fought for you while they still had a place in your life. And that's their regret to live with. Number 5. Every distraction is just an escape. They can pretend, but deep down, they feel it. They act like they've moved on, like they don't care, like your absence has no effect on them. They fill their days with distractions, new people, new routines, new hobbies, anything to keep their mind off of you. But here's the truth, my friends. Distractions don't erase feelings. They only delay them. Because no matter how far they run, the feeling follows them. Hey folks, imagine this. A fire starts in a house. Instead of putting it out, someone throws a thick blanket over it thinking, if I just cover it up, maybe it'll go away. At first, it seems like it's working. The flames disappear, the heat dies down, but underneath, that fire is still there, burning, spreading, growing hotter, and eventually, that blanket won't be enough to contain it. That's exactly what's happening inside them. They think that keeping busy will keep the thoughts away, that if they surround themselves with noise, they won't hear the silence where you used to be, that if they keep pretending they don't care, maybe, just maybe, they'll start to believe it. But the human mind doesn't work that way. See, feelings don't just vanish because we decide they should. They don't disappear just because we ignore them. In fact, the more we push them down, the stronger they come back. And I know what some of you are thinking, but they look happy. They seem fine. They're out there, living their life. Let me tell you something, my friends. Happiness doesn't need to be proven. True peace doesn't need validation. When someone is genuinely happy, they're just living. But when someone is forcing themselves to move on, it looks like a performance. Loud, over the top, almost like they're trying to convince the world, or maybe just themselves, that they're doing just fine. But at night, when the distractions fade, when the noise dies down, That's when the fire underneath starts to burn again. And that's when they feel it. They can surround themselves with new people, but those people don't replace the connection they lost. They can jump into work, hobbies, parties, but all that movement, it's just running in circles. And the more they force themselves to move on, the more you stay in their mind. Because forcing something means it's not natural. They tell themselves they're over it, that you don't matter, that they've moved on. But every time they have to say it out loud, it's because a part of them is still fighting to believe it. And here's where it gets even deeper. Distractions don't just delay emotions. They make them hit harder, because sooner or later, the distractions stop working. The new person doesn't feel the same. The fun night out doesn't last. The work no longer numbs the thoughts. And when that happens, everything they tried to suppress comes crashing down all at once. They feel the silence. They feel the absence. And worst of all, they feel the regret. Because now they realize they've spent all this time running when they should have been facing the truth. And that truth is that they lost something real. But let's be clear, this isn't your problem. You don't need to reach out, remind them, prove your worth. You don't need to check in, ask if they're okay. Try to make them see what they lost. Time is already handling that for you. Because while they've been distracting themselves, you've been growing. While they've been pretending, you've been healing. And while they've been running, you've been moving forward. And one day, when their distractions no longer work, when they finally have to sit alone with their own thoughts, they'll realize the truth. But by then, it won't matter anymore. Number 6. When they see you thriving, it hurts. Nothing makes them think about you more than realizing you don't need them. They were so sure you'd be stuck, that you'd be sitting there, replaying old conversations, waiting for them to come back. They thought they had time, that they had control, that they could leave, explore, and whenever they were ready, you'd still be in the same place. But now they see you thriving. And let me tell you something, my friends, nothing stings more than that. Because they expected you to suffer, to miss them so much that you couldn't function, to be drowning in regret, checking their profile, hoping for a sign. But instead, you're glowing. Hey folks, imagine this. Someone finds a diamond but mistakes it for a rock. They toss it aside carelessly, thinking it's just another worthless stone. And for a while, they don't think twice about it, until one day they see someone else pick it up, polish it, recognize its worth, and suddenly, that same diamond they threw away is all they can think about. That's exactly what's happening right now. Because when they left, they thought they were making the right choice. They convinced themselves you were replaceable, that what you brought to the table could be found elsewhere. But here's where they played themselves. You weren't just another option. You were the best thing they had. And now they see it. Because while they were busy wasting time, distracting themselves, thinking they had the upper hand, you were evolving. You were leveling up. You weren't sitting around, crying over someone who didn't value you. You were becoming someone they can never reach again. And that realization is hitting them hard. At first, they ignored it. They told themselves, it's just a phase. They'll still miss me. They'll still care. But every time they check, every time they peek in on your life, they see the same thing. You don't need them. You're out there, smiling, growing, winning. And that's when it starts to burn. Because deep down, they wanted you to wait. They wanted you to sit in silence, to miss them, to feel their absence like a wound that wouldn't heal. They wanted to believe that they had that power over you. But instead, you healed. Instead, you turned that pain into power. Instead, you became the version of yourself they always feared you'd become, the version that sees them as irrelevant. And here's where it gets even better, because now they don't just regret losing you, they regret ever thinking they could. But let me hit you with a little stoic truth. Your power lies in moving forward, not proving your worth. You don't have to prove anything to them. You don't need to post, to flex, to try and make them see what they lost. They already see it. They see it in the fact that you haven't reached out. They see it in the way you carry yourself now. They see it every time they check in, hoping, just hoping, that maybe, just maybe, you're still affected. But you're not. And let's be real, this isn't easy. There was a time when you would have done anything to make them see your value. A time when you wanted so badly for them to recognize what they had before it was too late. But now it doesn't matter. Because the best revenge is no revenge at all. Just success, just happiness, just becoming the person they never thought you'd have the strength to become. And one day, they'll reach for you. They'll think about sending that message, about breaking their silence, about trying to get back in. But by then, you'll be too far ahead to even notice. Number 7, they want to reach out, but fear your reaction. Their pride won't let them message you because they don't know what you'll say. They sit there, staring at their phone, scrolling through old messages, typing and deleting, debating whether they should reach out. They want to, badly, but something stops them every time. Fear. Not the kind of fear that makes people run away, but the kind that keeps them frozen, the kind that traps them in their own hesitation, making them overthink every possible outcome. Because the truth? They don't know where they stand with you anymore. And that terrifies them. Hey folks, imagine this. Someone is standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down. The drop is deep, and they have no idea what's at the bottom. They hesitate, step back, move forward again, trying to convince themselves that if they just get the courage to jump, everything will be fine. But they don't know for sure. They don't know if there's solid ground waiting for them, or if they'll just fall. And because they can't predict what will happen, they stay stuck in place. That's exactly where they are right now. They want to reach out, but they have no idea how you'll react. Do you still care? Would you even reply? Are you waiting, hoping, longing for them the way they once assumed you would? Or are you completely, utterly done? That question eats at them. See, when they walked away, they thought they had control. They assumed that no matter what, they could come back any time, that you would still be there, waiting, holding space for them, willing to hear them out. But time has changed things. You've changed. And now? Now, they aren't sure anymore. And that's what's stopping them, because pride turns into fear, and fear turns into regret. At first, their pride kept them silent because they didn't want to admit they missed you. But now their fear keeps them silent because they don't want to face the truth. The truth that they might not matter to you anymore. The truth that they waited too long. The truth that the moment they reach out, they'll find out exactly what their place in your life is. And they might not like the answer. And let's be real, this isn't just about them reaching out. This is about control. See, when they stay silent, they still have the illusion of power. They can tell themselves, I could text any time if I wanted to. They can pretend that they're choosing not to speak to you, but the second they hit send, that illusion disappears. because suddenly they're not in control anymore. You are. Your response, or lack of one, will define everything, and that realization paralyzes them. Because what if you don't respond? What if you're cold, indifferent, unbothered? What if you don't even acknowledge them at all? That would confirm their worst fear, that you've moved on, that their absence didn't destroy you, that they lost someone who no longer even thinks about them. So instead of risking that, they do nothing. They sit in their hesitation, they battle with their thoughts. They tell themselves, maybe I'll wait a little longer, maybe the timing isn't right, maybe they'll reach out first. But every day that passes, their regret gets louder, because deep down they know if they wait too long, they might lose the chance forever. And let's be real, this isn't easy for you either. There was a time when you would have dropped everything if they had reached out. A time when you were hoping, waiting, praying for that message. But now, you're in a different place. You're not waiting anymore. You're not checking your phone, wondering if they'll finally swallow their pride. You've moved forward. And one day, they'll finally get the courage to reach out. They'll send that message, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they still have a place in your life. But by then, you won't need to respond. Number 8. By the time they break, you'll be too far ahead. They'll think about reaching out when it's already too late. They hesitate, they wait, they assume they have control, that if they ever start to miss you, they can just come back, slip right back into your life like nothing happened. But what they don't realize, while they've been stuck in pride, you've been evolving. At first, they don't feel the loss. They distract themselves, tell themselves they made the right choice. They convince themselves you'll always be there, that if they ever get curious, if they ever feel that familiar pull, they'll still have a way back in. But time has a way of teaching lessons. Hey folks, imagine this. They once had a seat at your table, a place where they were valued, cared for, appreciated. But they walked away, thinking they could return whenever they wanted. And now? Now, that table is gone. The seat they once had, taken, and the meal they thought they could come back to, it no longer exists. And that's when it hits them. They took too long. They hesitated for too many nights, ignored too many feelings, waited until their pride was comfortable. And now it's over. Because the truth is, they are the ones who lost, not you. Say it with me. I have moved on. Write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you are done waiting for someone who thought they had forever. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because what's coming next? It's going to make sure they never stop thinking about what they lost.